Yeah. All right. The BBC thing is so interesting. The two top people at the BBC, including Deborah Turness, who used to run NBC,
Yeah.
both resigned. What's confusing to me about this controversy, where they aired a documentary last year that put together Trump's comments from January
January 6th.
6th, in which they made it seem like he basically said, "Everybody go up there and storm the Capitol," by splicing together different parts. Here's the headline from the New York Times, and the American media is covering this obsessively. Why the BBC is facing its gravest crisis in decades. The British public service broadcaster apologized Monday for a misleadingly edited documentary about President Trump, but the scandal has already claimed two of its top executives. Here's what's confusing to me, Dan, about this. The thing they put together, these were not some obscure Trump comments. These are like super famous Trump comments that have been analyzed and investigated and written about for years now. The notion that they needed some outside investigator to say, was this misleading? I mean, of course it was misleading, but on the face of it. And of course, they're ridiculous that they did what they did, but I don't really understand why this is like some bombshell report that's a surprise to anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, no,
why was,
I totally
if it's
agree
an
with you. I
outrage,
mean,
if it's
first,
an outrage now, why was it an outrage right when they did it?
yeah, and I mean, first off, that day speaks for itself. I don't know why they had to try to edit it to make it look worse than it was. Like,
Yeah.
there, it's pretty obvious what happened.
Yeah.
The only thing I've read that maybe answers the question is that there were other stories in which they were increasingly being accused of selective editing, of
Yeah.
not telling the whole
Yeah.
truth, and so it could be that somehow this got resurfaced. Trump has been suing people in the last, in this year
Yeah.
over stuff. It's I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm curious
So,
and why they
so
took their reaction to this. The U.S.
yeah.
president, I would think
Yeah.
digging in
Yeah.
against him would be good
Yeah.
for them.
Sean, the president's threatening to sue them and he's asking for an apology and all this stuff. They've already taken the documentaries in question off the website. But do you think the British, I mean, again, the BBC is quasi-governmental. You think this is another case of they don't want to be on Trump's bad side, and that's why this is happening?
Well, first, I mean, the Telegraph, which kind of has pushed this, did a great job of really analyzing the timeline and making it a big deal. And so there's a lot of fuel to this fire that's coming from other media sources looking to attack the BBC. I mean, that's part of this. And I think Deborah Turness's sort of pretending that this isn't a scandal is sort of literally unbelievable. The way that they're like, we did nothing wrong, and it's not up for debate. I mean, I find that whole fascinating. The other thing that I find fascinating is the BBC, in my experience, generally loves to very clearly compartmentalize their different news divisions. So they'll say, oh, that's the documentary team. They have nothing to do with news. And then and so the idea that the entire brand is coming down with this, to me, is a huge failure on their PR team's fault, because they are always good when people interact with them. Well, there's a lot of folks in the White House and during the campaign that banned the BBC because of their biased coverage. And I think the BBC has always been tried to be very clear about how to bifurcate the different sections. Oh, this isn't, we're not dealing with this
Yeah.
anymore. This is a huge brand issue. And I wouldn't be surprised if Starmer, the prime minister, gets involved in this for exactly the point that you raised, in the same way that Mark Carney in Canada was getting involved when Mayor Ford made the Ontario commercial.
Yeah. So a couple things our colleagues have shared with me. First of all, the documentary wasn't produced in-house, but they did air it. And then some of the controversy over bias has to do with the executives not owning up on things like some trans coverage, some coverage of Israel. But it's still of a piece with the notion that Donald Trump is leading, just as he's led on immigration, had an impact around the world, particularly in Europe, leading on this question of pushing back against liberal media bias. They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America. And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and Two Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.